Building a marriage takes the right material, but these are not materials that can be purchased in a store. These materials have to be matured and cultivated on the inside. The Marriage Material Podcast Show was created to help listeners grow and mature in areas that are important to building and maintaining a healthy marriage and relationships. You are listening to the Marriage Material Podcast Show, and here's your host, Pastor Darius Good.
Thank you for joining us on today. This is the very first episode of the podcast show, Marriage Material, and this show was inspired as a result of a marriage counseling session that I was doing, where we were discussing marriage and certain things that were important to building and developing a healthy marriage. And the individual suggested, why don't you write a book on the subject of marriage? And at the time, I had no interest in writing the book. But over the course of several weeks of exploring, just thinking and reasoning, maybe I should, what would I say? The chapters began coming. And so as a result of it, I currently have about 32 chapters in a book that I'm currently writing. It's entitled Adam and Eve, God's Original Plan for Marriage. And so I'm going to be relaying a lot of that information on this platform in regards to God's original plan for marriage. And so this podcast show will not just focus on marriage and the marriage relationship, but it's going to focus on relationships, period. And so it can help you in many different ways, whether you're engaged, whether you are dating, or even if you're single. We are surrounded by relationships all the time. We work in jobs where relationships are a part of our workflow. And so we have different levels of relationships, whether it's association, whether it's friendships. And so we're going to explore all these concepts, but really centering it around the idea of making sure that you are healthy and that you are strong, that you're working at an optimal peak level so that all the relationships around you and tied to you can also be healthy. And so I want to begin with this idea. One thing that's really inspired me, if you've been following the ministry that I have, I do pastor a church, but I've also I wrote a book about 2 years ago involving divorce. And that book began this ministry of ministering to those Christians who have experienced divorce. And what has really been on my heart, though, is helping marriages, because the divorce is a result of the marriage falling apart. And so even though there's a serious need, especially in the church, to help strengthen and support those who have gone through the devastation of divorce, but there's also a need to strengthen the marriages. And there's a lot of ministries that are devoted to marriage. But the book that I wrote, because I'm not going to write something that I can just tell you, read this book or that book, that will provide you the information that I really agree with, information that's really going to help build up and edify an individual or a relationship. I don't feel the need of being redundant. But as I put this book together, I began to see I'm hitting marriage and relationships from a very different angle. And I'm trying to keep it rooted in the Bible, rooted in the scriptures, so that could be our main source or let me say it this way, that could be our foundation of what we go to as a source of truth. Truth is very important. You cannot build a foundation on bits and pieces of truth. You have to build it on actual truth in order for the house to survive. The house is built on a foundation. And in order for that home to survive, it's going to go through some things. It has to weather storms. But that's only done when the home is built on truth. And so one truth I want to highlight on today's episode is I've seen a lot of marriages. I'm a child, a product of a two-home family. Mother and father loved each other. They did not have extensive dating experience before meeting each other. They were married at the age of 20 and 21. They began pastoring around that time. And so they have a very unique relationship compared to probably most people and individuals. I grew up in a home where I didn't see my parents fight. They weren't arguing and yelling at each other and slamming doors and not sleeping in the bed together. And so it was a loving relationship. They were mature, able to work through their differences and talk and discuss things. And one thing I saw was that God was number one for each of them, for my father and for my mother. And of course, my dad was a pastor, pastoring the church. But that doesn't ring true for every pastor, if we're going to be honest. And so I was exposed to a very strong and healthy marriage. My uncles and aunts on both sides of the family, I could point to strong relationships. And some, it doesn't mean that they didn't go through anything, but they had the fortitude and the strength and maturity to pull things together and say, let's keep going. But there's something I began to pick up on. As a preacher's kid, growing up in the church, I really thought all the marriages in the church were strong and healthy and resembled the experience that I was having. And of course, this is my childlike thinking. And then as I became older, I began to hear the stories and began to find out of the troubles that many of the families were having. And as I got older, now you see divorce happening in marriages I thought were strong and secure. There is a term, and it's called gray divorce. There's an article I'm going to read to you out of the USA Today. The article is entitled, "More Americans Are Splitting After 50. Financial Planning Tips for a Gray Divorce." So it begins, the divorce rate has doubled since 1990 for Americans over 55. For couples over 65, the rate has tripled. And I'll just stop there because I want us to be familiar with this term, gray divorce. And this article does explain. We'll read this paragraph here. Gray divorce has surged in recent decades. Federal data shows even as the divorce rate for younger Americans has declined. This article, and there's many other articles written on this subject of gray divorce, a massive explosion of divorces post 50. And here I was, a young child growing up. So I'm seeing couples that were in their 30s. Mind you, my parents were, early 20s when they got married. So I'm seeing couples in their 30s and 40s and 50s that I viewed as strong marriage examples. And now at this stage of life, I'm watching these marriages fall apart. And now they're being honest about what they experienced during their marriages. And so the examples that were set for me, I realized that what I was seeing wasn't entirely accurate. And so this is what has bothered me as we do the celebration of the marriage, which is our anniversaries. And we come together and we celebrate our grandparents. And so we talk about how a couple's been together 50 years and 40 years and 30 years. And now I'm watching couples married 30 years now getting divorced. So then what are we celebrating at the anniversary? It's very simple. We're celebrating longevity and we're celebrating endurance. But those are just small elements of marriage. Those elements are part of the foundation of a marriage. If you're going to have a strong, healthy marriage, you have to be a person with endurance. You have to have the ability to maintain longevity. And that's, of course, not just the length of time, but that means during the obstacles that will present itself along the way. If you're running cross country, so in track, they have the cross country event. That event is about your longevity, your ability to keep going as you're running through the trails. And so you're going up hills and down hills. And so in marriage, or even in any relationship, you're going to face obstacles. And the ability to keep going over extended periods of time, to keep the relationship going. This is a part of the fundamentals of a healthy relationship. But that can't be all that we celebrate. And this is what we've done, where the man and the woman no longer like each other, still love each other. Or in some cases, which is now what they're experiencing with the great divorce, is a lot of the financial reasons of why they didn't walk away. And so these weren't healthy marriages. They weren't strong marriages. And now in my older age, I can look at relationships and I can tell if the fire is still there between the husband and the wife. Has the fire gone out? As I mentioned, I do a lot of marriage counseling, and I'm counseling young couples married 2-3 years, and the fire has gone out. What happened? The fire was present, and we can see it when people begin dating. A woman meets a man, she is excited, the fire begins. A man meets a woman, he's attracted to her, the fire begins. And you can see the glow on the individual as they are now experiencing life. They feel alive. Another point we can highlight is engagement. When couples get engaged, you see the glow on the individual. Hey, what happened to you? You look different. They look physically the same, but there's a radiation about them. There's a fire, a glow. And we say that a woman ends up pregnant. You are glowing, especially in a pregnancy where the woman is excited. And so we can see the emotional effect that causes the glow. And this is what's important for healthy marriages. I don't want to celebrate relationships because they stayed together. I don't want to celebrate tolerance. I want to celebrate love. Not just love, but passion. And not just passion, but that glow each person has because they're connected to someone that is feeding them. And when I say feeding them, I'm thinking of terms, and we're going to get into this in more detail. But there's an excellent book, The 5 Love Languages. When a person's love tank is full, they're being fed. Somebody's pouring into them, building them up, making them feel loved, making them feel secure. These are the things that are important that cause a marriage to be satisfying. And this is God's original plan for marriage. And we're going to go through the details of the story of Adam and Eve so we can understand God's original plan for marriage. Now understand, this is before Satan showed up. And it's funny because as I'm putting this book together, my argument was we don't have enough detail to understand what the relationship was like between Adam and Eve. But as I began to pray, the revelation began coming. We don't need much detail. 2 or 3 verses is enough as the Lord began to break it down to bring understanding of what he desires between the ultimate relationship a man and woman can have, which is marriage. That relationship is closer than the relationship of a father with a child or a mother with a child. There's no other relationship on the planet that resembles marriage. And this is why the attack on marriage has been so extreme and so intense. If you just look at our culture, especially American culture, it's a major attack on marriage. And we want to redefine it and we want to change it. And it doesn't work. It doesn't work because it's contrary to the original plan which God had in place. And so this original plan, understand, it did not include the idea of man eating from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. And so Adam and Eve did not have to contend with areas of darkness that you and I have to go through. And so we're going to highlight some of these areas that are destructive. And so in this podcast show, we're going to highlight these things that we need to be aware of to make sure that our marriages and our relationships are healthy and strong. Thank you for joining us on today. You're listening to the Marriage Material Podcast Show. To learn more about myself, visit the website at dariusgood.com. You'll find information there regarding books that I've written, as well as this podcast show and the other podcast shows that we have available. Once again, that website address is Darius, DariusGood.com. We are working towards being quality marriage material, even if you're already married. So this platform is about growth and maturation. I'm going to leave you with this quote from Gail Sheehy. If we don't change, we don't grow. And if we don't grow, we aren't really living. Until next time, be blessed.
You have been listening to the Marriage Material Podcast Show with your host, Darius Good. This was a Good Treasure Ministries production. Darius is a senior pastor of Bible Gospel Center and the author of the book, Soul Ties. To learn more about this book and other books written by Darius, or to listen to other episodes, visit our website today at dariusgood.com. Please like, share, and subscribe to our podcast show. And until the next time, be blessed.